Hello and welcome. Today I am joined by Rick Carter. So, not to put any pressure on you, Rick, but I've been looking forward to this one. So, thank you for joining. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking me. Yeah, must be some reason you asked me, but very interesting as usual.
Yeah, special request for this one. So, Rick, I've known you a long time and throughout the various things that I've been doing, but I'm looking forward to just finding out a bit more about you. So, in terms of you, like, where are you from? The sort of Crewe area originally?
Yeah, no, born and bred, Crewe. Yes, yeah, not much. We always say that Crewe's a very good place to get out of. Yeah, so it's one of those things. But and I got out of it, but I've always come back to it. Yeah, but it's been good for me, and it's been a very good base for me.
Well, I was at university in Alsager, so I know that area relatively well. So we'd go over to the Crewe campus a little bit. My girlfriend's actually from Nantwich, so I've started to go back to Crewe. So you never know, I might bump into you on the streets around there sometime.
Oh wow, scary.
So yeah, in terms of getting into this area, then was moving into like physiotherapy. Is that always something that you're interested in doing? How did that transition happen?
Well, I sort of drifted into physiotherapy, and some people would say that's what I've done for most of my life. But I moved into physio. I applied for it when I was younger, when I was 17, 18, and then I had a number of family things basically that happened. I ended up staying to look after my brother to some degree. He was 9 years younger than me. I didn't go and do the physio. I ended up in banking for all things. Out of I think I applied for 70 odd jobs when I was 18, and I got 5 replies from banks. So in the face of adversity in 1981, banks were the thing to do. I stayed in banking for a while, and then just as everyone started to make some money, I got out of that. So I went into physio at 26. So I had a false start really. That was at Coventry. I got a place when I was 18, and then I ended up at Leeds.
Right.
At 26.
So what were you doing in banking then? And like, was that just you just applying for any job basically?
Well, 1982. Were you born then, Andy? Were you born?
I was 3 then, yeah.
Yeah. Well, recession, similar to the one that's just about to happen. Yeah. So recession, no jobs. I applied for everything. And strangely enough, I had done 6 months at university doing accountancy, because again, it was a job out of whatever I did at university. I did it all the wrong way around. Kids nowadays go and do what they like. I had to think of something I could do that might earn me money quickly. That was never going to work. But when I came out, applied for everything, and still had to go back into finance and banking anyway. Did okay. Got all my ACIB, fully qualified. Ended up a manager's assistant at Northwich. So I could have continued that, done okay. But those days it was, highly regulated, and exams were the thing. So you had to get your exams first and then wait for someone to die. Whereas after 1982, it quickly deregulated. It became a selling industry, and people made a lot of money. So I should have stayed there.
So what prompted the move to physio then?
It was banking. Me and banking were never going to get on fully in the end. I'd walk around with a piece of paper in my hand and look busy and tell a few jokes and do the job, but it was never going to be the most interesting. So slightly unfulfilling, but I don't think it was possibly doing the right work. So you just don't know. When you're younger, you move into different things. You try to do your best. I got promoted a number of times. I think I went to 8 branches in 8 years. But that wasn't going to happen for me. So I probably had got the right career in the first place when I was 18, and that just nibbled away in the backdrop. So I ended up in Leeds when I was 26 in 1989.
So where was that at then? Where did you study?
Studied at Leeds. It was the old Leeds Physiotherapy clinic, the physiotherapy school, which was in porter cabins at the side of the LGI. They then moved into the Polytechnic Leeds Met, where I think that's where they are now. But yeah, good school. You know, very authoritarian in some ways. You know, very rigid educationally. Good hospitals, very good hospitals, St James's and the LGI. And you know, it was a little bit different than it probably is now. Training, you know, it was tests every week that you had to pass, anatomy stuff. If you didn't pass that one, it built up until you might have 2 to pass the next week. If you didn't pass that one, you'd have 3 to pass the week after. Yeah, hardcore. You know, anatomy vivas all the while. Good though, good. You know, it made you learn, and you know, I was starting late, so I got a lot of catching up to do. So I worked hard, got a bit fed up of it in the second year, and reapplied to do banking at the bank. Got down to a final 2 of an interview, and nearly went back into the bank because I just hated students by the time I was 28. About that really, but you know, I'm glad I stayed the course, so it was okay.
So that was different to Pinderfields, because I know quite a few people like Mark Leather and Dave Galley and those guys. Was that a completely separate course?
No, I wasn't in that club with those reprobates. I was, you know, I was in good old Leeds, proper school Leeds. You know what I mean? Not like that rehabilitation place at Pinderfields. No, nothing. Couldn't get in there for love of the money. No, didn't want that. But yeah, no, Leeds was great. You know, I love Leeds, Wakefield, all around there, Barnsley. You know, I had very good times, and you know, I have no regrets. Still in touch with 1 or 2 people. You know, it was an interesting time. It was a necessary time to change careers. Difficult. Gave up a lot of finance. Gave up a house. But it was what's the word? Character building, Andy. Look what a character. Look at that. Fantastic. Yeah, I had enough of them probably, but they are.
So when you were doing that, did you have a clear vision in terms of what you wanted? Well, obviously not, because you were toing and throwing with banking, but did you know what you wanted to move into as you were progressing through the course when you decided to go back and stick with physio?
Yeah, you know, I got it. Yeah, it was a very strange experience to have 28 females and 4 lads sat round in blue underwear on the first day. You know, I wasn't ready for that, and that scarred me to this moment. So that was what's the word? Yeah, that was a challenge. At 26, I wasn't quite ready for those big blue pants, and yeah, it was a slightly different experience than I might have expected. And I always try and make sure that my clients never feel as exposed as I felt on those first few days, which were quite horrific, I would suggest.
It must have been more scarring for them, to be honest. So you know.
Yeah, will be. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, you've seen my 58-year-old body. It's quite scary. Yes, yeah, it's true.
I can say that I've not seen it, so yeah. So when you were moving through that, then, so you say it's a female dominated. Quite a few people have said that it was very female dominated, or whether it was on the remedial side as well. But like, what was the typical roles that you would go into following that course?
Well, it was similar to today, but I think today's even worse, whereby you just funneled into the NHS, and you know, you're told that your life's going to end if you don't do your rotations and all that stuff. That you know, is really it's come to the fore again now, massively. You know, NHS staff, you know, the drive to get the staff from the universities into the NHS is fairly brutal now, I feel, and I think, you know, we did get a little bit more leeway as to what we did, but even I succumbed to it and ended up at where did I start? At the City General at Stoke, working with Rob Riles, as if you know Rob Riles, and then I went through to Leighton, where I was one male physio in 34 ladies. You know, it was a different time. You know, totally different to where we are now. And fairly you know, even through the training, it was fairly, you know, if you come across quite a number of challenges with clinical educators. You know, I was a mature student as a male, and there was a number of sort of mature ladies who'd be my educators, and that was a learning curve for me that was quite what's the word? Yeah, quite bracing at times. You know, I had to learn to be different than I am for that period, and I think that has changed. You know, I think that's softened to some degree, and there's a lot more freedom for students to come into. But then again, you know, I'm not so sure that the knowledge base of the students currently is as robust as was driven through the schools. You know, there was unbelievably high standards of anatomy, especially. You know, you actually failed things. There were the days where, you know, you failed, you know, and it was like, it was okay to fail, but nowadays no one fails anything. Yeah, interesting.
And so what roles were you doing then in those hospitals?
I did everything. Yeah, trawled through everything really. I did outpatients where I could. I remember a meeting that I had about 18 months in with the director of the physiotherapy the therapy services unit at Stoke, and that was about, you know, my next rotation was care of the elderly, and then it was oncology, and I just thought, well, it's okay, it'll be interesting, but it was far removed from what I wanted to do. I was working for free at Stoke with the youth team, with Tony Lacey when Lou Macari was the manager, and Richard Gray was the physio, and Rich was you know, fantastic mentor in lots of ways. Just let you come on a Saturday, watch what went on. There were the days of Wayne Biggins and Mark Steen, Vince Overson, Lee Sanford. And you know, you saw what went on, and you saw what it was to work in football. I had an under-16s manager, Trevor Mullett, who was you know, a great guy, big friends with Phil Bright and Mark Bright. So that sort of directed me. You know, I worked there. I worked in the sports injury clinic at the Hayward on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I worked all weekend at Stoke for nothing. You know, I felt I had catching up to do. You know, I was 8 years behind. I needed to get going. So that was my approach, and that's what I did. And I think Martin Copeland had been at the Hayward before that, and then also Dave Galley was the Hayward. What's the word? Physio. You know, he'd worked there before. So I think, you know, it was a good time in some ways because I knew I had to work, and also because you work, you got spotted, and then you know, I went on to work at Crewe Alex then as my first team job on a part-time basis. They used to just do physio as a Saturday job, and you could do 2 sessions with one of the age groups in the week, but they just wanted a Saturday physio to go with the team. Amazing. And I sort of worked opposite Bernadette Oakes there, you know, and Bernie's still going in Sandbach. And, you know, we were very similar in terms of age and outlook. But that worked quite well. I think I did the rehab in the afternoon. She did the morning sessions with the physio. So that was my first stint there. And I once I'd seen that, I really wanted to work full time. And I went down the route that was a lot different again. And it's not better now. It's not better. You know, it's not better for people getting into football. I went to Alan Hodgson, obviously, the legend at Lilleshall, who just had a chat with you. I think he sent me to Grimsby for a job once, where Alan Buckley met me in a Mercedes and took me around Cleethorpes. They had a part-time fireman at the time. He was a lovely bloke as their physio. So you can see how that conversation went. I went to Lincoln, and I think one of Alan Sugar's big friends was there as chairman at the time. And I remember him receiving a call from Alan Sugar while I was having an interview, and then he tried to sell me a private clinic. As in, I'd work for nothing virtually for Lincoln, but I could do my private work, you know, unbelievable. But then I ended up at Port Vale as my first job, which was, you know, I'd probably say was and is the best job I ever did. So I had 4 years there that, you know, were life changing really, and gave me the freedom and the confidence to be the new physio that I was. So I was very fortunate there.
So what was it about the environment, both in general, that made you want to get into it? And then what was particularly good about the Port Vale role that you just said it was your best job?
You know, as people might know me, I'm rather random, probably. I sort of work okay when there's chaotic things happening. I'm okay. I'm slightly chaotic myself. I don't quite like order and structure too much. And football sort of has that element to it. You know, it's rather random. You know, things happen that you don't expect. You've got to think on your feet. You've got to, you know, you've got to be able to work long hours. You've got to be able to say yes to most things, then think about it after. And I think Rudgy, when I was there, John Rudge was, I think he took me in on the first day and he just said to me, Rick, he says, one thing you've got to remember about working in football is, he says, a football club is a place of turmoil. And I thought, well, you know, looking back at that, you know, he was extremely correct. And he basically said to me, you know, you let me know who's fit by lunchtime on a Friday. Let me know any issues. I'll let you do what you want to do. I won't, unless there's a very good reason, I won't play a player that you've told me is not fit to play. And he was true to his word. And yeah, he let me run. He's probably, if I'm honest, he's probably one of the only people who let me run to a degree. You know, I'd probably include Mark Gillette in that as well, you know, and is a, you know, hugely good manager, you know, understands you, you know, tries to get the best out of you. But John was just classic. You know, he was very orderly in his sayings and what he'd do, and he was very comical in some ways, and it took a long time to know the players, and he spent quite a long time getting to know a new player before he signed them. And obviously he was one of the generation of managers like David Moyes that would go out and he'd research players night after night after night. You know, that was the job. That's what he'd signed up for. And his poor wife Del was, you know, at home a lot of the time. We'd see her at the games, and like John was like, you know, definite ship in the night. But you know, all for the furtherance of the job and the club. And you know, he's still doing it at Port Vale now. It was good to see him on the telly in the playoff final. You know, being able to share in that. But yeah, brilliant guy who allowed a group of staff to get on. You know, to call you in every now and then. I think I remember I had a bit of a set to with Lee Mills in the gym once, and Lee would probably remember it too. And John heard about it, and he got me in, and he just stood there shaking his head, you know, at me. And, you know, he just says, you know, he'd kill you, he said to me, you know, he'd kill you. And he was a big guy, Lee, so he could kill me. And he said, I don't know what you're playing at. He says, don't be doing that. He says, that's never going to get you anywhere. So, yeah, good stuff, really. Yeah, they were good times. And I'd say in every club I ever worked at beyond it, and in private practice, everything, I think things changed in football from that point. You know, for me, it changed. You know, I think it was 98 I left Port Vale. And players then, you know, you were all together. There was no super talent, and if they came in, they were respectful of the money they got and everything else. It was different. You know, obviously, yeah, you can't compare the athleticism and the prowess of what we have now. But, you know, as a place to work, as a workplace, it was, you know, a very together place. And, you know, I'm still in touch with a number of the players, and especially Andy Porter, who was captain for a period there. And, you know, he would say the same, really. You know, it was a period. It was a definite period where First Division, I think they finished sixth in the First Division. They had great cup runs, games against Everton, Leeds, Arsenal. You know, you were, you know, they were punching the weight, and it was a very what's the word, memorable time. You know, I don't look back at other periods and think, well, oh yeah, that was great all through it. There's bits I pick out, but that place was good place to be, good staff. Even the chairman, who got a lot of stick, Billy Bell, got a huge amount of stick. He used to hide in his warehouse when I used to go up and ask for a rise every Christmas. And, you know, he'd go in this garage, and I'd go in and ask for him. And I'd just seen him going in the back, and the receptionist say, no, Mr. Bell's not in today. But you know, even that was part of it. It's part of the game. So, you know, you'd catch him another time, give him the letter, and I usually got the rise. So it's different now. That's so far different.
I remember that, going back to you talking about the Everton game. I remember Ian Bogey scoring an absolute cracker.
Yeah, absolute classic. Yeah, I think it cut from him scoring to the bench at that point. And if that's still available anywhere, you know, I got this terrible bob hat on, and I was like, I was internally damned for wearing that hat. You know what I mean? It was shocking. But yeah, great goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that Martin Foyle as well, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Martin's still in touch with Martin. Lovely bloke. You know, what a centre forward. You know, Rolls Royce centre forward. Knew where to be. Knew how and where to lay the ball off. Very, very intuitive. Yeah, and a very funny guy. You know, very good in the group. So yeah, it was. We were lucky. We had a mix that was always governed by John. Usually, you know, John would decide people who were coming in. He'd find them, and there was very few that didn't fit the mix. You know, one or two that were a little bit offside, but not too bad.
Yeah. So what prompted you to leave there?
Well, we'd gone through a period, and I think John was very soon to be departing, and his relationship with Bill Bell had broken down to a major point. And I'd set my own business up, so I was working from a GP clinic in Crewe, in Worcestershire, and I thought, you know, I was doing okay there, 3 or 4 nights beyond. So whatever I was doing at the club, I was then going to the practice, doing more work. And a part-time job came back at Crewe. So there's another rehabilitation job that came up that was, you know, we wanted to see how that worked. And I thought, well, I could do that in the afternoon. I can do my clinic in the morning. I can do clinic at night, do what I feel. You know, there was travel with a team and all the rest of it, but yeah, that was okay. It was another period at Crewe. Interesting, you know, always an interesting club to work for more reasons than one. But yeah, it's again, I think one thing that the clubs at Crewe, the Vale, allowed me to do was they allowed me to be a business person. You know, I could go out and negotiate deals. I think we had a gym from Pulse Fitness when I was at the Vale. We had a great contract with Smith and Nephew. We had some dealings with Maersk Medical. You know, in days where that didn't really happen, so I could just move things about. You know, when I was at Crewe, I got some funding from Smith and Nephew for computer systems and various things. And that again was another mix of the things that I've done in my life that those clubs allowed me to do, which I quite liked. You know, there's a certain freedom, but never as much as there was at the Vale.
So do you think that was led by the fact that you saw the opportunity for building those networks, or do you think it was that the infrastructure liked it, or a bit of both, or were you just looking out for how you could maximise the work that you were offering for the clubs?
Well, I just think that I think it was a time where if there's more time to recognise someone who works for you because you worked very much with them. There's a realization that not all the skills that you need come in the guise of a commercial manager there's no reason to think that the commercial manager in place is going to have some of the things needed to actually do some part of the role. And the clubs were small enough to have the proximity to discuss things. Whereas nowadays, obviously, it's far removed from that. You are what you are. You do physio as a physio, so not as interesting, really. Physio's okay, but it's a bit dry, really, in its own route to some degree. I think you've got to add things into it to make it more interesting. Football was always a great add-in, but I could never really commit fully to it. I always had to have something going in the background. I never trusted it. Probably Reggie put me off altogether when he told me it was a place of turmoil. But I thought, well, I better keep something in my back pocket for when I'm getting old and wizened.
So is that what prompted you to kind of build the business then? Is that how it came from?
Yeah, probably eternal insecurity, I'd say, Andy. My background wasn't particularly financially secure, so I think trying to actually make sure that I was in a better place as I got older was a big driver. And I also truly believe that you could be out of football in a second. But nowadays, it's not really panned out like that. There's people at Chelsea now that, when I left, it's the same staff now. It's unbelievable. I've been gone 12 years or whatever. And it's the same staff. Steve's there running on, with his shiny head. He's still running on. Good lad. But incredible. You'd never have, you wouldn't credit it really. How little movement actually happens in football, given the inherent instability of it. I think that's a lot to do with medical departments being their own department, and good doctors and managers of departments that keep it together and allow the staff to have the security. So yeah.
So where did you go to from there then? So you were working part-time at Crewe. What was the next move?
I think next I went to, God, you've got me there. I think I went back to Stoke. And I think that was when Boss Camps was there as a manager, and then Poulis came in, and then I left for a bit. I got remarried. It's a theme through my life, a third marriage, and I think I'd said to me then wife I'd never work in football again, and then I had a phone call from John Rodger, who'd gone there as director of football or whatever it gone as. They'd got rid of all the Icelandic physiotherapists and all the Icelandic staff, and could I go in and help? And that was a week after I got married, so that was virtually the end of that marriage as well. But that's just one element of life in that respect. But it was that was a decision that was just taken in the moment, and probably highlighted where football was with my life. And also John, he asked me. He's the one who'd done everything to help me before, so I thought, well, I'm going to go there. That's what he wants. I thought it was the right thing to do. And, it was an interesting time with Steve Cottrell, who then left his car keys on the front wheel of his Mercedes and went with Howard Wilkinson to Sunderland. I think Stoke then lost the next 16 games or something. Poor old Dave Kevin to take over. Bizarre times, bizarre times. And then, that was that then. And I think, what happened after that? I think I worked beyond that. I worked when Tony came back there again. We did that as a clinic. So the clinic did the football physio. So that was that was a moment for us because, we got the massage, 2 physios or 3 physios. Dave Watson was working for the clinic. Tony wanted one person, as he does. He wanted the ownership of a member of staff, if that's the right word to put it. And Dave wanted to do it. So Dave obviously went on and went on and went on and went on. And I'm not so sure whether he's still doing stuff there. I think his lad's now playing in the academy at Stoke. So that was that. So I think that was my second reincarnation of Mr. Poulis. And then obviously I had my third reincarnation with Mr. Poulis at West Brom. So, different times. But I could never say that I had the feel about the whole stuff. I was doing the job, but it didn't feel like it was the place. It was Stoke was a strange place. Slightly, dare I say it, slightly not bland, but just slightly characterless. The new stadium, all the rest of it hadn't quite gelled. I think Tony got it together more in that spell where they got into the Premiership and everything else later on. So it was weird. It was a transition at Stoke, I think, all that time.
Why do you think that, for one, you kept going back in then, bearing in mind you sort of drive your mad, but also what was it about you that the managers wanted you to go back in?
Couldn't get anyone else. They needed someone to go and do it then. And also they knew I could do it, and I think there's one thing going in as a physio and, talking the game and doing what you do. But, you have to have experience. You've got to be able to give an answer. And I think, again, you were more on your own at that point. You had to have some maturity or experience, knowledge. And I was a mature student, so I could give it back to some degree. And, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do that work, but I also wanted to have my own element round the back. I just didn't trust it. And that's a terrible thing to say. I just didn't have that element of, well, I'm not just jumping all in here, and I'd probably have that the same anywhere.
So how did the work with Chelsea come about?
God grief. Yeah. Another change of life. I'd just been around France and Spain on my motorbike for about 5 or 6 weeks. And I came back to a letter saying that I got an interview for a job I'd applied for in the Journal. I went down for an interview, and I think it was the legend Dave Hancock was the physio. And Brian and another couple of doctors. And then I had another interview. And then I ended up getting a call saying I got the job, which was like as a number 2 type physio to Dave. And yeah, that was another experience. That was amazing high performance experience. That's all I could say, really. Lots of things good, lots of things not so good. But yeah, you witnessed how to work at a really high level. People were getting very well paid. Whether they'll get very well paid consistently now, I'm not sure. But and also, you needed to deliver. You're under no illusion that it was going to be a job that you needed to commit to. Now, the slight problem there was that I was running my business that was going up here whilst being down there. So I think I always remember Paul Clement saying to me that when they were having their management meetings in the morning, all they could see was me walking around the car park on my phone while all the players were getting treated. So yeah, it was probably unmanageable. Really, that's a problem. Unmanageable, and that might be the that'll be on my gravestone, I imagine, like the Spike Milligan. I told you I was ill. I think it'll be that type of thing. But yeah, it was that was a good time for me. You know, I think that's a pivotal time to go and witness, you know, the likes of Michael Ballack, you know, going in there 3 times a day to do different sessions, you know, doing a total in body immersion consistently, you know, beyond what was even done now, doing ridiculous yoga sessions at 6 o'clock at night. You know, you looked at that level of quality, and you were like, wow, you know, you're like, this, you're not going to witness this again, and I haven't, to be honest. So yeah, a good. You know, I think the problem nowadays is, you know, there's a lot of just middle of the road physio. There's a lot of people just go, you know, they'll go to various companies, including my own. And where do you get that element from? How do you learn what is the best? You know, how do you deliver what is the best? How can you have standards that are, you know that it's got to be a certain way? It's like working for the best hotels, isn't it? Or being a chef in a Michelin star restaurant. You've just got to deliver. And there's no I got it wrong, or, you know, if you do get it wrong, you've got to, you know, you've got to have everything in place to show why. Yeah, it was interesting. Some of it not so good, but most of it great. Met some fantastic people. The late Nick Broad, you know, he was a great music fan, and you know, really, really pleasant guy. You know, Glenn Driscoll, you know, obviously Brian, who's you know, Leicester, and who's been on a journey himself. You know, always reaching for the next thing. Very driven. You know, Brian was the man in charge at the time. Didn't quite understand some of his ways then, but I learned why he was saying some of the stuff later in life. You know, I didn't know at the time. I still didn't know. Thought I did, but yeah, you know, a lot of learning, a lot of challenge. Maybe too much challenge. You know, some that you might not have particularly wanted, but you know, much better for the experience. I was a better person for having the experience. You know, and obviously Mark Gillette was there as well, who went to work with after, and had a number of great years just working as a consultant 1 or 2 days a week at West Brom and then Notts Forest. And that was probably, I'd found my best role then. You know, I could use my maturity, I could use the knowledge from the science and the physio and the management. And you know, I think that mid-40s period is quite a pivotal time in your career. You know, you sort of know things, and you're feeling good. You've still got that youth that kicks you on. So again, you know, another great period. So you know, and I think you realise as you move on that there's certain things you do at certain ages as a physio. You know, if you're still running up and down the bloody touchline at 66 or whatever, and there will be people who are doing it, I'm not even going to name them. Yeah, I'm not so sure that that's great in the young man's game or young women's game. You know, if it's like under 35s as a players, you know, I think the support team have got to have the youth to go with it, with a little smattering of experience here and there. But the drive and the energy you need to work at that level is massive. Massive. And you have to say to yourself, have I got that? You know, I felt as things progressed that perhaps I could do it for a little bit, but I can't do it like 7 days and then whatever. And I've had a family later in life. I've got a younger wife. I've got 3 daughters, and I've got a lot of work to do in terms of being a father and a family man. I'm divorced twice, and you know, 3rd marriage, and that's enough for me. The next one's going to kill me. So I'm you know, I'm happily concentrating on that element in this stage of my life, and I owe that to my family.
So in terms of like doing those roles, then, so the Chelsea, you'd stayed around like the sort of Staffordshire area for a lot of what you'd been doing. Then what was it about that Chelsea opportunity? Was it the chance to go and work with like Mourinho and those people that prompted you to go?
He left the week I went. And my role was really sort of a secondary role with a reserve team, various different things with Brendan Rodgers, Paul Clement, etc., etc. And then I'd attend on first team games, etc., etc. But it was that wasn't a job you could do. There's no way you could do that. It was all in. You were going to various places, Munich, America. You'd go with the players. And then you'd fly back and you'd land at 7 in the morning and you'd be in the clinic in the office at 8 o'clock, which is like I'd never seen anything like it. I wouldn't do it now, but that was the culture and that's what you did.
Mm. And how much did this affect like your business then back up in that area then?
Well, at the time, I left the business running with a business partner that was, and I invested the money that would come off it into 3 different people. One was a physio, one was an accountant, and one was a marketing consultant. So I invested in that to do those roles monthly. So it kept going. But it sort of worked for a bit, but it was never going to work longer term. But yeah, I think from what I saw, and as I came back, it was a big decision. We had a child, my first child. I'd inherited one child, but we had our own, and the decision was stay there and live in an ex-council house for 350,000 or whatever at that time, which would be very cheap now. Or come back, spend half the money in a nice house, and have that type of life. Emily's family are all from up here, so that was, it was a no-brainer really. It wasn't really about me to some degree, it was how does this pan out in the long term? I couldn't see it panning out down there, and I couldn't actually see me being there for more than 4 or 5 years. I'd get the sack. So I just thought, it's a much better decision to invest in my family and change the business when I came back. It's gone on from there. Obviously, COVID's nearly killed everybody, including myself, business wise. Hands-on business in a pandemic's never going to be a great idea, is it? So, but we're still here somehow. I'm talking to you. Whereas I truly didn't think I would be about 12 months ago. So,
yeah,
a beach in Greece was looking very, very favourable then, Andy.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And then in terms of you obviously had loads and loads of experiences, but are there any ones that particularly stand out? You mentioned that the time at Port Vale was great, but are there any individual moments, whether it's in sport or not, that you thought, that is really resonated?
Say that again, sorry. If
just in terms of any real memorable moments, whether it be in sport or not, that have been really particularly it's been worth doing it for just to have that experience of winning a game or whatever it may be.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think you just get used to every game you go to. I still now I can't stop at 1 o'clock on a Saturday or whenever a match day would be. I'm hopeless. Even though I'm not working with a club currently, I'm like, I feel it. It's an energy that you pace around, you do what's needed, crack a few jokes, do what the players want. Listen to the manager, encourage. Then all through the game, you're heading every ball, kicking every ball. I'm not so sure there's one incident that would say, oh, that was amazing. I don't feel that. I feel that if you're in it, you're in it. It's like people say, who do you support? And I'm like, well, no one really. It's like, it was just all great. The games are special. And, to be part of a performance team and a great multidisciplinary team, which I think I have been fortunate enough to work under, especially with Brian and Mark. You're like, well, what a privilege. What a privilege. How often are you going to get that opportunity where it's truly you're working with truly special people who go on and do really special things. including the management. So, you know, it's incredible, really. You know, like when Brendan Rodgers was at Chelsea, you know, he was meticulous, like beyond meticulous, and also Paul alongside. But you know, Paul who came to the job after, and went on to be, you know, and is still doing great things now. He's at Everton. You're like, well, you know, you watch them work, and I'm not so sure I'd got that level of application. I'm sure they'd say that I hadn't. But, you know, I think I brought my own particular brand to the table. You know, that's all I'd say.
Mm. And like you mentioned Michael Ballack, but there's some other amazing players around that time as well. It was Terry, Lampard, those guys. But was that pretty consistent with the players there? Do you see that as being the main difference between some of the clubs that you'd worked at?
Well, you know, I think I'd never ever, you know, I went there the week after Jose left, and you know, Avram Grant was given the role, and the players just got on with it. Steve Clarke, you know, total genius, you know, lovely man. You know, they were awesome. You know, they're just an incredible group. I think Avram Grant has probably got to go down as the most unlucky manager that ever hit. You know, he could have won the treble simply because they went to Moscow with the Champions League. In the Carling Cup, they got beaten by Tottenham 1-0, and they lost the league by 2 points, I think it was that year. Yeah, actually, there was a series of events around those games and playing staff that, you know, there was some decisions to make really with the stronger players, perhaps. And, you know, I think in another sphere, you'd be saying that the treble winner, Avram Grant, you know, because he was clever enough and smart, a very smart man, to allow the players to do the thing. And very much like Carlo Ancelotti, that, you know, the brilliance of these people is that they look at the Rolls Royces they've got around them, as in the players, and they just think, well, I'll just make sure they've got the right place in the garage. They don't sort of say, you know, go and, this is what I want you to do. You're not doing that enough. They're just incredibly laid back with it and relaxed because they know that the players have got it. And they get the players to find it inside them. You know, you look at that Real Madrid side this year and you're thinking, wow, where did they pull all that from? You know, pure genius, amazing goalkeeping. You know, the goals that were scored in the semi-final at the end of full time. You're like, wow, you know, you rarely see that type of management. But you know, it's his pinnacle, Carlo Ancelotti, and what a nice guy, you know, with it in every aspect. You like, and I think having seen that level of management and how to do that, it makes you wonder. You know, you've got to set yourself up to work with those top players because I'm not so sure that works at any other level. You know, there's so much more of the person that's delivered to the players at other levels. You know, people say that Steve Cooper at Notts Forest has a similar route with, you know, getting the players to really let them do what they do and then give them the confidence to do what they do. But that's a slightly different thing of, you know, he takes players that are probably slightly underconfident and just instills that, go and do it, you know, go and do what you do. And that, you know, I think he's transformational with younger players, whereas like these managers that can go and make the best players do their thing, you know, they're really special, aren't they? You know, amazing.
Yeah. No, so did you think with the managers that you worked with, was it because you see them on TV all the time, like you see Ancelotti, and that's kind of known as being that calm influence, and he's known as maybe not doing that much. That's kind of the general perception, which is what you're saying there. But do you think the managers, are they pretty consistent as to what you see on the TV as to what you see on a day-to-day basis when you're working with them?
You know, I mean, my main role there was not directly with him, so you know, but the whole place knew that that's what he was like. You know, the whole place got the feel that that was how it worked. Can't. You know, it just was how it was. Fantastic. You know, Gus Hiddink wasn't too much different. You know, very good presence. You know, you knew what you were in. Yeah, very different people, but similar in lots of ways to, you know, you're okay. I'm here. It's okay. You know, to some degree, if that's all that's needed. Genius, really. You know, how do you, you know, I've got too much self-doubt ever to think that I could instill that level, you know, but whether they have great real self-doubt, I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But if they do, they hide it very well.
And then, so on that note, then, what would your advice be for people that are maybe looking at getting into physio? What would your advice be to them?
To get into physio, it's not what I tell my staff who want to leave. I always say, no, you need to stay here. But I think that, you know, a breadth of experience, you know, go and see it happen. Yeah, talk to everyone. You know, I worry that football is not as accessible as it was. It worries me. I mean, I'm a ragtag from Crewe and I got into it. And, you know, I was a mature student. You know, I was scratching a bit to get in. But I got in. And I'd probably say get every opportunity. You know, ask people for, you know, go to clubs and ask the physios, be direct, you know, and in your placements, you know, request placements that show what you can do. And also when you do go there, you know, do everything. Don't leave anything unsaid. Do everything you can. I think I was told when I went to Chelsea, Brian English told me, you know, that I didn't really have to say it too much in front of the players. I needed to watch and look and step in if I was needed, but not to be making a nuisance of myself to some degree. You know, just keep that environment and then try not to disrupt that to some degree, which I'm probably quite good at. So, you know, but yeah, I'd do everything you can to actually gain that knowledge, and maybe don't listen too much to some of the clinical stuff that you get on placements, and some of the lecturers that work within the universities who are great. Well, I'm maybe pretty sure that they haven't had some of the experience that's needed, and there's very few private practitioners teaching in our universities. Very few that you know, have got any great private practice experience. So I'm not so sure they can actually get the right knowledge and the right setup. It's highly skewed at the moment towards the NHS entry. And there's so much you can do in private practice and the freedom you can have. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah, well, on that note, I really appreciate that. So, yeah, I've enjoyed some of those tales, and I look forward to catching up in person on some of those as well when we come over and see you. So, no, Rick, really appreciate your time on that, and thanks for sharing it.
No problem. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Rick.